Would you join me in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've been waiting diligently for our legal counsel to get here to start, so we get underway now. I have to get that on.
Please proceed.
Denise, anything new on the agenda?
We have 3 additions for today. We're going to carry forward our conversation on solar tilt process. Mr. Berman has added the grant application related to Warner Canyon portable water and campsites. And we also carried forward our remodel quote discussion.
Any public comment? Go ahead, Rick.
I was just sharing with Ginger that I affected the meeting last night.
Other planning commission? Well, if there's no other comment, then we'll move down to, is that Oasis, take them at 11 o'clock?
We're doing that at 11. Emily with AOC will be joining us.
Then we go to solar pills then.
And this is carried forward because of our discussion yesterday. Was there somebody gathering information or?
We were going to have a conversation with Betty. I don't know if that.
I did not. I don't know if Ken did.
I asked Ginger to convey with Betty. Betty is our enterprise zone manager, and what we have in front of us is an application to not go the enterprise zone avenue, but to go with a straight payment in lieu of taxes bill of $7,000 a megawatt. So the question is, do we accept the appeal avenue or say no and say you have to go to enterprise zone? Ginger, could you brief on what Betty conveyed?
I was not able to reach her. So what I did was take a look at, she had forwarded to me a copy of the agreement that Klamath County entered into with the same group and said to follow up with them. Them being, I'm forgetting his name, Michael.
Well, we don't have an application before us. What we talked about yesterday was the process of that
Exactly, and that's what I'm,
application.
that's what I'm
So
trying
we don't
to.
want to confuse that with an application that may be coming.
Yeah, so what I have requested from Michael, he has agreement that they have drafted that is similar to the one that they had in Klamath County. And he's going to be sending that to me, and as of 2 minutes ago, I haven't received that from him yet. So the process at this point is to work with our assessor and with them about that agreement, because it is my assumption, which I don't want to assume anything, I'm gonna find out from him, that they want to go the route of the agreement rather than the enterprise zone. But I think it's actually up to you folks is to decide which way you want to go.
Yes.
Does that make
So
sense?
Ginger, let me ask you a question. When
Sure.
you say Michael, you talking about the same company that,
Yes.
okay, so if we go back to the original discussion yesterday, it was about, as our enterprise zone manager, Betty, we wanted her to look into this long-term for all projects that come, so there's not confusion as to where the clearinghouse is going to reside for those requests from individuals who put forward projects. That's what we really want Betty, the discussion to be with Betty is.
Right, and I was not, yeah, I was not able to reach her, but it's my understanding that she will work with the enterprise zone when somebody wants to do an enterprise zone agreement, that she will work with them, and anything outside of that would go to you folks, but I need to
Yeah,
confirm
we
that
probably
with
don't
her.
have anything we can do with it today.
Well, I need some clarification because of, we have this particular situation, they're getting hold of either administrative assistant, or they're getting hold of our planning department, or they're getting hold of Ginger. All we were doing was trying to find out our discussion was, is we thought, I think it was sort of the consensus, is that Betty does our enterprise zone management, so that'd be the right place. And that's all I'm looking at myself, was the process, not any applications at this time. I fully understand it's our decision when those applications come.
Yep.
But we need to make sure we have the process clear, so.
Well, the process is, I'm the liaison to the economic, and this is an economic endeavor. So I'll be the contact person, and when the application come in, I'll present it to you guys for review.
So whenever our staff gets the call, we direct them to call you?
I'll let them do the legwork, and when they get something in hand, they bring it to me.
That's where the problem is that, because it's coming to me. and-
Well, send it to me.
Okay.
Is there a problem there?
No, that's what I'm just trying to get
That's
to, is
the process,
where
we're
am
trying to
I?
find out who the right person
Where am I
is
sending?
whenever
Well-
these people call. If Betty's the enterprise zone manager.
But this is not enterprise zone. Yes. So, when it comes into these, send it to me. And that's a process. And then I'll bring it to you, for the three of us decide to go with the PILT aspect, or with
Or maybe
enterprise.
they might wanna do an enterprise zone, and it'd be great if Betty was involved.
Well, if we decide to go with the enterprise zone, then we hand it back to Betty.
Yeah.
I would hand it back to Betty.
Yeah.
That's a process. You wanted a process.
That'd be fine, sir.
Concurrence? So when the application comes in, forward to me, I'll bounce it off of assessor for correctness, and I'll bounce it off of the legal counsel for correctness. Then I'll bring it to the commissioners to say, we have this application in lieu of an enterprise zone. Which one do you want to go with? If you say you want to go with the enterprise zone, then it goes to Betty. Because it's not an enterprise zone until we make a decision that it is. Now, after about 4 or 5 weeks, I think we have a process. Okay? And we don't have the application in front of us at this time. So that subject is concluded. To the next item, Warner Canyon portable water and campsite.
The Parks and Rec, grant that we got, they sent us just the agreement to be signed by the grantee, which was the grantee. I just wanted to put it in front of you that I received it, and would like to get it signed so we can get it back and so we can proceed with the project up at the ski hill.
Dave, you've described this to us before, you wanna go ahead and just describe it again in this setting?
Yeah, it's just, we put in, last fall, we put in for a grant for $42,000, for a well for up to ski hill so they can have water, plus 4 campsites and 6 tent campsites up to ski hill too, so they can get water up there and just make it more inviting to the public and be able to do more events and more activity up there throughout the year.
And this would be portable water,
Yes.
so they'll go to public health as needed.
Yes.
David, the standard question is the match, it's 25.69% match. Just an explanation of how we do the local match.
Well, we'll come in, we have our 25% match, which comes in $10,000. That'll come out of,
RV fund.
the RV fund, the recreational fund, and then that'll, for our match. So,
Is there any soft match that's in there as well?
no, it's off, the road department, is helping us with 2,500. I think, yeah,
There's some other local, like ski club,
oh, yeah,
working
ski
on
club
the,
and
some
that would
practice.
be, I knew that, and then COIC, the youth program is involved, some more pieces.
Well, among many things that are important up on that hill and that recreation site, this might be the most important, so it's a good deal. Thank you all for make a motion that we approve the county opportunity grant agreement as presented.
Second motion?
Motion made and seconded, further discussion. Clarify me on how the match comes to be made?
Let's do the parks and, we have the 227, Daniel come through parks.
The
Parks and
Rec-
recreational fee, and then
use-
$10,000 will come out of that
And so,
for the county match.
so we'd be using state money to match the state grant,
Yes.
and there's not a problem with that. No, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thanks.
Now,
Dave.
if it was a marine, we can't use marine dollars to support a grant.
Really don't have water.
Right. Yeah.
There's always a problem with using federal money for federal grants, so I want to make sure that it was clear on the state funds.
Do you gentlemen want Mr. Berman to sign this, or do you want the chair to sign? General on these we do chair, but
Chair
Yes.
Relations.
Yeah.
Very good.
Next item is remodel quotes.
What about, Commissioner, what about our audit?
Tim? Oh, they here?
Yep.
Nick? Then let's bring him in.
Sorry, Dave. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good.
Nice to see all the water coming down.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so do you guys have a copy of your audit and your letters?
I didn't bring mine in.
I didn't bring an extra copy, so.
Well, I can run grab it or I can have a look at it.
Here's copies of the letter.
Letters, that's fine.
So I thought I would touch on the letters and then a few of the high points in the audit and some of the changes you've seen in your audit this year. And then if you have any questions or want me to talk about anything else, just let me know. The first letter I'd like to talk about is a 3-page letter. This is just the basic, I want to say boilerplate letter. It's our SASS 114 letter. It talks about the audit process and what we're responsible for, what you guys are responsible for. Basically, there's just a couple of changes in it because if there's any significant accounting policies that are implemented in the current year, we do have to mention that. So on page 2, it talks about GASB 168 has been implemented. I'll talk about that a little bit with the statement, so it's a pretty major change to your government-wide statement. But besides that, everything else is pretty much the same as last year in that letter. So if you have any questions, just let me know. The letter I'm gonna touch on in a lot more detail is our management order, so that's a 2-page letter. So this is, if we find any recommendations, so while we're here, we basically put these in this letter. So the first paragraph just talks about the fact that we do not look at every transaction. We do a risk-based approach, so anything that's riskier, we test more of, and less risk, we test less of. The first section talks about internal control policies and procedures. The first part of it, you've seen, it's just that we continue to note about the payroll and accounts payable. Right now, the oversight is good. We just want to keep you aware if there is any change in personnel, that you just have to make sure that internal control stays strong. As we go through these audits and things, numbers are good and that kind of stuff, we do get really picky, or if we know anything at all, we end up putting this letter. And such as we know that the employee handbook is 10 years old, and so it may be a good thing to think about reviewing and updating. Not that we found anything that had issues with it though, so. The payroll information from the road department to the payroll department, we don't have any evidence of approval. And so we would like to see the road supervisor providing evidence of approval that the upload sent to the payroll department is accurate, because it's uploaded to the payroll department, but it's not like a timesheet that's signed off on, so it's, payroll doesn't quite do the approval, so that would be a good thing to put into
We corrected that.
process.
We get a signed document on every payroll.
That was an issue last year, so.
No, not that one.
Time cards. Last year, I know we did have an issue with the time card approvals. Total, out of the 60 we tested, only 4 were not approved, and so that is much better this year. So we're very glad to see that control being taken with that. Then we have an area we talk about cash. So we'd like to see that the bank report and the general ledger reconciliation be reviewed for the ATM, because there's an ATM at the fairgrounds. And just that the cash should be counted in the machine periodically, so just a little bit of taking in my control.
When you say periodically, you're talking weekly, monthly,
It's kind
quarterly?
of whatever you feel necessary, as long as it's, you know, quarterly at least, I would think, but it, you know, that's up to you guys, so we just have to see it 1 or 2 times a year at least.
Which remember we talked about this letter in the exit interview last fall, so these are all the same things we talked about then. So a lot of these corrections occurred
Yeah.
after they were pointed out during the audit process. So
Right.
this is just
Plus
review.
that.
Yeah, so it's kind of, you know, pretty much this letter is about the same as it was earlier, except for we did add 1 additional comment. You know, the bank reconciliation approvals, you know, just making sure they're signed off on by somebody else who decides who's doing it. We did notice a lot better than last year though, and so that is good also. And also that some of the transactions show up as an adjustment, and, you know, maybe if you could leave the adjustment line less than that, we might be okay. On the second page, the top of it talks about capital assets, and I don't believe this is a comment we had during our exit interview because we hadn't completed the capital asset testing yet. So basically what we have is, there's a computer software system here that tracks part of the capital assets. However, it does not include some of the older equipment or the construction in progress, which I'm not sure if it will track the construction in progress, and also the buildings and improvements. And so without a system that's all combined, it makes it pretty tough for us to try to combine our our testing with the county testing to make sure we have an accurate capital asset total. And I know there's been discussions that we had with staff, and so they're gonna work at fixing that also, but it was pretty tough to test the capital assets. I do believe I think we do have a good number on the stuff, but we just wanna make sure the controls are in place in order to have a good capital asset record that includes everything. And then last, there's a comment on inventory. As we were testing inventory, we just noticed that the gauges weren't working properly, and so if those aren't replaced, it would be a good process to make sure that they're dipped periodically to make sure that they are correct.
I've talked to the road official, he said back here, he can give an update on that.
We did change the meter head and printout on that diesel tank. And the magnets inside of it weren't counting the gallons. That pump itself had over 1 million and some gallons pumped through it since literally back to the 80s, so it was pretty wore out. So it was, every time we get a truckload, we'd stick it, and 1 inch on a stick is 66 gallons, so we'd be 1 inch to 2 inches off from 122 to 66. And we've never done this in the past, but we do it now. On every truck that comes in, we stick it, and nobody fills up till we get the load, and we stick it afterwards. And Dave stops down there with me, sticking it, and we just stayed one in Crystal Valley, and we was only 7 gallons off between the truck and the tank.
Nice.
So, yeah, the magic stick and this is working real well too.
Because that could be a tough thing to keep control over, so that's, you know, fuel prices sometimes can be pretty.
But I think you're gonna see quite a difference on the gas. He'll be spot on next year on the diesel.
Good. So the nice thing about coming down is that pretty much everything's been fixed, it sounds like, so we won't have to say this again next audit. So that's a good thing. Do you guys have any questions about this?
Well, going back to the front page, and you're talking that 12.6% error rate,
Yeah.
and so, your recommendation is have somebody else, than the person preparing those to do that reconciliation.
And sometimes it's done and the initials aren't put on there, and so, you know, we can't tell coming in. And so just make sure the initials are on every time you do those.
Yeah, the clerk is our review official, so we're up to date. It's just a matter of like timing all of that, you know, and get reconciliations done. We initial them in our office and getting her initials too, so.
I guess, well, I can probably ask him, I write is whenever there's error rate of that amount, I don't fully understand that, I guess, myself. How would we have an error rate at that? I can
12%, so that's a little bit over a month of reconciliations didn't have dual approvals on. That's what
That's
that
what
12% means.
Because we looked at them all, and so that's just the amount that didn't.
1 month is about 8.3%.
That clarifies it.
Yeah.
Just plus you have numerous bank accounts, so it might
Yes,
just
yeah.
be significant too. It's an easy thing to miss an initial on, so, I mean, it's not like they weren't being done correctly either.
Yeah, that's not an error rate in the reconciliation, it's an error rate,
On the
it's an
initial.
omission rate on the approval, the secondary approval. Is that more clear? Okay.
Any other questions on that? So then I'd like to just kind of briefly touch on some of the financial numbers in the audit, if that works for you guys. Again, there was a CAFR done, a comprehensive annual financial report, which means it gets submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association for a certification. And it was submitted this year, but also I'd like to note that in last year's audit, in the year ending June 30th of 2014, certificate of achievement for excellence in financial requirements received also. So you'll notice in your audit, a copy of that is in there. So that's very good to see. That means that the statements I put together, the way they're supposed to be, and everything's included correctly. So page 1 and 2, this is the auditor's report. This is what you hire us to do. So in this report, in the opinion paragraph, we do have what we call an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get. Basically means, we didn't find anything big, we had a report in the audit. And so that's a good thing. So then you have your MD&A, your management discussion analysis, which is a good summary of the entire financial statements, a good narrative along with the numbers, and so it's a really good thing to read if you would like to. On page 11, this really starts with financial statements. These are government-wide financial statements, and this is where the big changes I was briefly mentioned earlier with GASB 68. GASB 68 has to do with pension plans per specifically. And so on page 11, you'll notice there is 4 additional numbers that are added to your financial statement this year. So under long-term assets, there's a net pension asset this year of a little over $1 million. So basically, this net pension asset comes from an actuarial report that is done, and it is received, and they actually look at the data through June 30th of 2014. So the year is a lag 1 year behind. And because of that, we have additional numbers that have to be put on this report. So basically what they're saying in this report is that the district PERS is overfunded by $1 million. However, you have to take into account, there was the Senate bill that had passed that was reducing COLA rates. And the actuary study was done right after that, and then it got overturned with a moral decision. And so because of that, next year you'll see a flip in that to probably a $1 million liability. So it'll probably be about the opposite. Right now, they're expecting if it was this year, it would have been a $1.2 million liability. And so you'll see a pretty big flip in numbers because of those decisions and the timing of those. So under deferred outflows, there's a current year PERS contribution of $370,000. This is what we used to expense in these statements. It's the amount of PERS that was paid, or pension that was paid to PERS for this fiscal year. So fiscal year 2014-15, and because of the fact of the lag of the actuary report, it has to be reported as a deferred outflow. So it's kind of like a prepaid expense on this report now. Next year, that'll change into part of the liability part. Then there's also 2 other numbers. There's a net difference in PERS investments, which is on the liability, or below the liabilities of $2 million. This is the amount on the PERS that is the difference between what they expected to receive in investment and what they actually received. So they're underfunded on that part by $2 million. And then also we have the changes in the pension proportion, which basically is, so this actuary study is done for the state as a whole. And then each district has their own proportion that the actuary study comes up with. And so that's just the different changes in that. It's a $64,000 deferred inflow.
When you say district, who are you talking
Oh,
about?
county.
Okay,
Yeah, I apologize.
yeah, I didn't know if we were in
I just think
somebody else
bigger
on
first.
our
No, I'm talking about county.
responsibilities. Yeah.
And so, but those numbers make it really entrance to read the financial statements. And page 12, there's a large restatement of a negative $2.2 million, and that has to do with, we had to go back and basically book the liability from last year. Because they said it would have been a liability, and it flipped to an asset this year, and next year it'll flip back to it. So you'll see another large change in your net position next year. So that really makes your numbers really difficult to look at. But I just wanted to make you aware that's what, GASB 68 did, and they want you to book these on your financial statements now. And as we all know, the PERS rates are gonna be increasing substantially in the next few years. We have one more year left in this biennium for the rates. And then I've heard they expected it between 20 and 30% they'll increase in the next 4 bienniums, so the next 8 years. We'll see how that plays out, but that's kind of what's coming down the line there. So
This is the nation's attempt to ensure that the public understands we have a pension issue across the nation. The state of Oregon has done a pretty good job with PERS, but again, this accounting standard is nationwide. So
Yes.
here it is.
So it makes your statements pretty tough to read, though, is the hard part about it. So that's only included on your government-wide statements and your full accrual statements. So if you look at,
Well, I have to make a comment,
Yes.
that's great that we're trying to make it where the public can see it, but without somebody sitting there and explaining it, it is not even close for the public to understand.
exactly, and it's very confusing anyway. I mean, we spent a lot of time researching it. I know that there was 40 school audits that they asked for extensions for this year at ODE, which is not usually allowed to do that because of the standard. And so it's kind of pretty tough standard anyway. It's pretty confusing, but, yeah, and it doesn't make, users, it doesn't make the user friendly at all. It's even worse than it was, so. But-
No, when you were describing, 1 year it's an asset of
Mhm.
2.2, and next year it's a liability, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, and it's big numbers we're talking about too,
Yeah.
we flip in $3 million. It's just, it's kind of crazy, it makes them almost not useful at all.
So what should we be thinking of it? What?
Planning to pay higher rates for the next.
Well, and that's the easiest part to understand, Jay, is that, based on the court decision, we're gonna be paying higher rates.
Correct.
End of story.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
And they're showing their financial statements, but they're also taking it as a whole and trying to break it out in proportions, but doesn't exactly, and that is exactly your county's pension stuff anyway, is the other part. And in actuary, it's all dependent on different factors and all different, discounted rates and that kind of stuff, and those are estimates, and so you never know how it's gonna turn out.
Yeah.
That's the hard part with those two. But I just wanted to mostly make you aware, one of, the rates are gonna increase, which I'm sure you guys have been aware of for a while. And also that the statements do have some different numbers, and there's some large changes in your numbers because of that statement.
So Carrie, before you go on, you read a figure in there on our fiscal year, I think, of $370,000 that we paid in.
Mm-hmm.
So can we do the math and say 20% of that will be the additional cost, perhaps?
Perhaps in the next, it's not gonna go up 20% in the next
No.
biennium, but yeah, depending on your.
Just for planning, as you look at available dollars to save versus,
Yeah, I could do like a
expand on something.
$70,000 or
Yeah.
whatever on 20% of that, but it compounds also, so.
right?
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty tough budgeting for that.
Yep.
And something we need to address this year in the budget, and
The rates won't go up this year,
Right,
but the
they'll-
year after.
They'll go up in 17.
but do we need to start planning?
I think talking about it, but when we know the actual rate, we'll build it into the budget. Although PERS is gonna go up significantly, the overall effect to the county is still not as high as health insurance. So, we'll have information in plenty of time to budget for that rate increase.
We should get it around, June of the year before, so we'll probably say around June this year.
Yeah.
Or so, June or July.
Thank you.
It'll be interesting budgeting for commercial, health insurance especially too.
Well, we know a good place we can cut, it's our audit costs will Reduce those.
I'm sure. Our insurance costs are going up too.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good counter right there, you know?
I don't know. Jay, do you wanna write this audit?
Pardon?
Do you wanna write this audit?
Let's see. We could do away with the audit. No, we,
We have no funding left, but. I don't know if you guys want me to touch on any of the other financial statements, that's really the biggest change. You know, I do wanna mention the general fund, it's kind of different, these statements, as it does, like, when maybe you get financial documents from your staff, because the balance sheet, like on page 13, is combined general fund, and that had to do with, GASB statement 54, which was back 3 years ago now, I think, and, that was when they specified what the special revenue funds and stuff could be used for, and so there was different funds, such as, landfill funds, that's combined with the general fund. In the reporting, you don't budget it that way, because you like to keep them separate in your budget, but we have to combine them in your statements, and so it looks kind of different, but in the back, there is a budget to actual for every fund, including your general fund split out like you normally budget. So, oh, I probably should mention the single audit reports too, they're in the back. But I'll just briefly say that we didn't have any findings in the single audit, which is our federal award audit. And we tested a couple of major programs and didn't have any findings that I know in internal control or in compliance audit. So we didn't have any issues with the audit to have to report that way.
And do you have any thoughts?
I just always appreciate this whole process, and I think it allows us to improve our internal controls and our procedures every year. It's just a reminder, you know, let's not get complacent, let's stay up to the standards, let's keep pushing ahead and improving. And so even though it seems like it lasts all year long, it's a really good process for county to go through. But the relationship with Oster is great. We can call them up at any time and ask for advice. And so I appreciate all the work that goes into it.
So in the future, is it possible when we get our initial report early on and then this follow-up, you know, we've already noted today and we just noted in, well, it gets recorded in the recordings and the minutes, but that we can have a follow-up page on things that we've corrected?
Oh,
Just so that, you know,
we
it's
could do that.
in black and white on paper
Yeah,
for our documents.
we could definitely do that. I think we could work together with.
I think, I know I'd appreciate it because our staff works really diligently on those
Yeah.
things and, you know, we say it's done.
Mhm.
But it'd be good if
To
you
see
know
what
that
procedures
it's
we've
done.
done.
Be
That
good
would be a
to
good.
have it documented.
Yeah.
Because it's something we have to do as an audit in the next year anyway, and so it's not like it would be a big issue to us.
Yeah.
If you would, as long as you guys would be, should have because you would.
Yeah.
We'll do that next year.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, I appreciate you guys being out.
Thank you for coming over. Hope things are getting better in your part of the world.
They seem to be, so.
We've been thinking about all of you for quite some time.
That'll happen.
Yep. Thank you. You're all leaving, you weren't here to enjoy the rest of the meeting?
Hey, back onto the model.
You guys asked me to bring you the bids, and I had these, give you copies. Questions you have for me?
I had a couple of questions I gave to Dave before the meeting, he clarified it for me. Yesterday he made the verbal recommendations of everybody put in quotes, and he made a recommendation of ProBuild as being the lowest quote. That still holds true today. My questions have been answered. I had a question on the doors, and I seen the delivery charge. I wanted to clarify to make sure that was delivery inside the building of all that heavy sheet rock, and that's a pretty reasonable delivery cost. And it's a safety thing as far as I'm concerned, for our employees not be packing that up and down the stairs. So good work on that, Dave. Appreciate it. Thanks for the follow-up this morning.
You're welcome, thank you.
And we too had same discussion on a couple of occasions, so.
I haven't had discussion, I trust my two fellow commissioners.
So, just for the record today, ProBuild was the low bid on those who met the criteria of our bid sheet.
Yes,
They were totally responsive to
Yes.
the bid request.
Yes.
So I'll make a motion that we award the building materials quote. Well, before I do that, we did have on here, and did you get that clarified that this, I mean, the date on it's good, but it is good.
Yes, they,
Okay.
31/16.
Okay, good.
That's expiration date.
So I'll go back to my motion that we award to ProBuild builders here in Lakeview, Oregon, the materials contract as presented.
I'll second the motion. Motion made second to award the bid to ProBuild. Any other discussion?
Just make sure, and I know this has been done, but I always ask if legal counsel is follows our contract review board rules by having, we went out for at least 3 quotes, and it's $75,000, so we have to do this by quote, not have to do it on the current square. Just want the record to.
Yeah.
We didn't state the total amount. The total amount's $19,943.74.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in
One
favor?
more thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Carl.
Go ahead.
Well, mine was kind of a joke, so I was just gonna say, I need you guys to bring your tool belts, because we'll need all the help we can to get this remodel done, so I was gonna see if you guys would bring your tool belts.
I have three, I can provide the whole board.
I've got mine, I'm sure I can teach you and your employees some lessons on carpentry if you need
You bring
it. I
mine
appreciate
too.
you including me.
And I think you need to go back to our original discussion that you actually don't want to see us down there till you tell us it's done.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, that was a big mistake.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
I'm there, you open the door, no pun intended.
And,
You don't want any more bosses involved.
Oh, easy.
Just for your information, you did not have asked me not to be there, so I will be.
Did you hear what he said? He doesn't need more bosses.
You only need one, you don't need 3 more to be.
Oh, he's the ultimate boss of them.
So the motion is on the floor. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you guys.
Go forth.
And do
Good work.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Wolf depredation. Commissioner Winters.
We talked about that yesterday, but I would like to say one more thing on that. We're putting in the grant, one thing I didn't mention is through the grant where there was no county dollars, hard dollars that are contributed to putting this together, the dollars that's contributed, I guess you could say, is my time and Denise's time. So anyways, I just wanted, I forgot to mention that yesterday, so it's, I don't know if it's mailed off yet, Denise is electronically and hard copy.
We're still waiting for 11 o'clock, so we have minutes.
We have 2 sets. It was determined with some of the research last week that I did, that one set from 2015 actually was missed. So not only do I have our February 3rd, 2016, but we have February 24th of 2015. I apologize. I'm not sure how that got missed, but it did.
I think probably better stated is she caught one that was missed, and that's a good thing. Correct. So I'll make a motion to accept February 24th, 2015, and February 3rd, 2016 minutes.
Second it.
Motion made and seconded to accept both of the minutes as stated. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
last item.
Do we do that legal, like we will have executive session, which will take longer.
I'm just gonna open it up for public reading. Anything for public, Jim?
No, I mean, I've dealt with some issues in various departments with things like possibly illegally occupied buildings that the county foreclosed on, just dealing with Darwin on those. So we're moving forward to make sure whether or not somebody's there, and then the process to have them removed. You know, so we've seen things with various departments, but nothing of board level significance.
Anything for executive? Do you have things on the executive?
Yeah, we have 3 things for executive session.
Can it be handled in 15 minutes, or should we wait?
No, I think we can, and if we can't, then we'll just go back into executive session.
Or we'll go past the 11 o'clock. Preference by the board?
There's one that I brought forward, and Jay will need to be done, and it will take a while, I think. But we can do the other, I think, just as legal counsel says, we can come back in, or we can take a 15-minute break, whichever you would like to do, Chair.
Well, 15 minutes is a long time for a break, just to go ahead and get some business done.
Might be hard to round up everybody.
Yes. So, folks who remain will be the Board of Commissioners, legal counsel, and an assistant. And if we get to the one day involvement, and we still have time, we'll cover it.
Okay.
So, 10:44, we in the executive session. 11:04, we'll reconvene into general session. Last topic is how do you wish to pronounce it? OASIS, intergovernmental agreement.
Yes, and I talked to Emily yesterday afternoon, and she graciously said that she'd do a call in, and she's got Rob, the council with her too. So Emily, if you would want to just go ahead and explain to us what this is, and that'd be great, and then we can, maybe if there are questions, we can ask you afterwards.
You bet. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I'm happy to participate in your meeting today. My name is Emily Ackland. I'm the County Road Program Manager at the Association of Oregon Counties. So OASIS is the Oregon Association of County Engineers and Surveyors. The organization consists of your county public works directors, engineers, and surveyors from all 36 counties. So today I believe you're considering the IGA that formally establishes OASIS as an organization and makes it a ORS 190 governmental entity. And then the other component of that, which I believe you're considering, is an ordinance that basically says you're engaged with this organization. And so I've also got Rob Bovat here today. He's our legal counsel to answer any questions that you may have about the IGA. I believe he's the author of the IGA. So I'll leave it to you to ask any questions that you have about it and see if we can answer them.
So Rick, I've got a question right up front. In our discussion, this is Dan, Emily, and Rob. In our discussions yesterday, we were asking Rick about, it says 10 counties in order to form this, and it talks about the fees, and it looks like they're equal fees depending upon the number of counties split equally. It doesn't talk about what the total cost is, but the bigger question beyond fees, because we all know that to do business it usually costs money, but what would this be in lieu of, or is it in lieu of anything, or just an addition to our representation already around these entities?
So maybe I can just briefly add to what Emily had to say and then answer your specific questions. So so OASIS really needed to formalize as something for a number of reasons. And so I presented them with a variety of options. This is the option that overwhelmingly the OASIS members supported. So I attempted, as best I could, to draft the shortest, cleanest, and barest ORS Chapter 190 Intergovernmental Entity Agreement possible. And I literally did the statutory minimum necessary to get by. And I sent out to the County Council listserv a heavily footnoted version of what they're looking at with citations to basically every statute that requires this as the bare minimum. And then the statutes also require that any entity forming an intergovernmental entity has to also enact an ordinance ratifying that. And so there are basically two documents to make this fly. So I sent that out. Everybody liked what they read, so far as I can tell, among the entire County Council listserv, but they had some changes. And the requested changes really were, I would call them additions to the minimum statutory stuff. So the intent here, of course, overall intent is not to change anything about OASIS at all, and not even really to affect their bylaws. It's really just to formalize their existence. So the question you specifically asked about the 10 county minimum was suggested, I think wisely, by County Council on the listserv. And he said, you need to have a triggering mechanism so you don't form this darn thing after 3 or 4 counties do it, and then nobody else decides they want to do it. You need to actually get up to some point before you actually form the darn thing and have to file with the Secretary of State. Because if for whatever reason it dies off the vine, then, you can just call it a day. And I read that and read comments that others had from that, and it was basically a consensus. So I just added that. So that's just your triggering device. And then there's also a closing device. If people start to bail on OASIS and it gets to below 10 members, then the darn thing automatically terminates. So we just pick that as the trigger, both on the inside and the outside, which makes sense. And the goal here is to not leave straggling entities, which we have in history occasionally done. And there's these defunct organizations that really almost everybody, if not everybody, has walked away from, and then they just truly walk away from it. And it's just this thing that is ignored, but is still on the books everywhere. And is in default for lack of filing their annual statement. So I thought those were really great suggestions. And so even though the statute doesn't require that minimum level of triggering, technically the statute says that it would only take 2 counties to form this. So that put that minimum level in before we actually form this darn thing. So that kind of answers your specific question. And I'm happy to answer any more that you might have. With regard to fees, I left it fairly open in terms of leaving it to the bylaws and the board to determine how they allocate the fees among the OASIS members in terms of equity, which could change over time. But I think the OASIS members are fairly happy with the way it works right now. At least I haven't heard any grumblings.
So this is Brad, a couple of questions. Emily had mentioned an ordinance. We don't have nothing in front of us. The ordinance would take a hearing process, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. And my other question is, you talk about the membership being 10 minimum, but I don't read on here, it'd probably be in your bylaws, of how a member can not be a member. What's the process? Do they just say, I don't want to be a member and no longer a member?
Pretty much. The goal of OASIS and the membership is to have all 36 counties sign off on this and to become members, to remain members as they are now, kind of ad infinitum. But yeah, the way we've provided it in here is just providing a notice, and you can essentially bail out of OASIS if a particular county that no longer wants to participate.
But it's not spelled out any place, it's just, most agreements or anything has a 30-day get-out clause or something like that. Maybe it's not necessary for this, but
Well,
just,
in this case,
go ahead.
yeah, in this case, I have a 30-day bailout clause.
Okay.
So that's in section 2, subsection 6.
We don't have that section.
Yeah, section 2. Any party in this agreement may terminate participation in this agreement.
I apologize, I overlooked it and I read it twice.
Yeah, so like I say, we kind of talked this IGA through, and I did make some, I think, all improvements suggested by various county council around the state. But yeah, it does require not only the execution of the IGA, but the statute requires the execution of a companion ratifying ordinance. And I crafted that as well. County council were fine with that and didn't have any changes to that particular document. And in fact, some of our members are already, I've already got one fully executed from Umatilla the other day, and a few of our other members are doing it later this month. But yeah, I recognize that depending on people's charters and their processes, it may take them a couple of months or whatever, or even longer to get done. So I didn't actually pick a date, target date, until, really July 1 for, filing all this with the Secretary of State. So I'm certainly happy to send council another original. I sent out the final draft, which became the final OASIS IGA, as a PDF document that you probably have. And since you have the one that has 10 county minimum, I know you have the last version. I also sent out the ordinance to the county council listserv as a Word document because I know that people have to change things in terms of format to make it fit into their ordinance form, because it seems like there's 36 different models of how you do an ordinance. So I just gave the necessary language in a Word document. I'm certainly happy to send that out again.
Well, let me ask the question of our legal counsel. This is an intergovernmental agreement. Why do we have to do an ordinance for an intergovernmental agreement?
Well,
Robert, certainly you can answer as well, but the state law requires it.
Okay. Our other intergovernmental agreements, I don't think we've done ordinances, but it must be different.
Well, here you're actually committing to the county funds for doing things. Some of the agreements that we do are just sort of aspirational in nature rather than.
No, so that, if I can interject again, intergovernmental agreements do not require a ratifying ordinance, no matter what you're doing in the IGA. You could be spending millions of dollars. But an intergovernmental agreement that forms an entity requires a ratifying ordinance by state law.
Okay. So we need to set that up, if we agree to do this and do that process also.
Dan, did you get the fees, I guess, is a question. Is this extra fees? Or I guess I'm looking.
Yeah, Rick's talking about fees again, what we talked about earlier, and in here it talks about the board or the group determining fair shares, but is this in addition to what we already pay into AOC for any other entities to do with public works, roads, et cetera?
No, so this has nothing to do with AOC. This is just, and this wouldn't change Oasis and their bylaws and their processes as well. So there's no additional fee associated with this.
Okay.
Unless the Oasis members and board decide to change how they do Oasis fees, then this would not affect that at all.
So there's no fees. I explained yesterday that the money that runs Irish program and most of Emily's program is through STP funds held out for distributed through the STIP. So there's no extra fees tied to this anywhere.
No. And that doesn't go through Oasis. That's an AOC program.
Right.
Well, I'd like to hear from Rick. What is this bias?
I like to hear from my counsel.
Oh, I'm sorry, what's the question? I would advise you to be quiet.
He said I talk too much.
So I guess, and we're still hung up on fees, Rob. So the fees we pay now are through AOC. What fees do we pay to Oasis now?
No.
So Commissioner, the fees for Oasis are assessed annually. And for Lake County, I believe it's an annual fee of $350. And for each member, employee at Lake County, it's an additional $40. So if you have 3 employees, it's $120 plus $350 every year. And that fee structure is not gonna change, as far as I know. We haven't talked about that within the Oasis committees at all.
Did you understand that?
Yeah. So I don't know what other questions there might be around this agreement or the need for our ordinance, but I think as far as fees and our participation, that'll just be something we visit with Rick about, so I'm good.
I'll go back to my question I just asked, mostly for the audience. What is this bias?
Emily?
This is,
Go ahead, Rob, I'm sorry.
it doesn't really buy you anything. This is just formalizing Oasis as a formal entity. We have had throughout history, through over 100 years, these organizations, associations, call them what you will, kind of just spring up without any formal structure or creation. And so one of the things we've been trying to do is clean all of that up. And so this is really just putting on paper, in a legal manner, that which has been going on for, I don't know how long Oasis has been around, decades.
It's just formalize and recognition of them.
Right.
Okay.
So-
Getting us in compliance with today's laws by forming a 190, ORS 190.
Go ahead, Emily.
So, if the other part of your question is, what is the benefit of Oasis? What does that provide? What does that organization provide you? Oasis, again, I staff that organization. We have monthly meetings that we staff and provide. We send out newsletters that keep all of your road officials informed of all things roads, grant opportunities, new things going on at ODOT, just, information. And Oasis, the main focus of the organization is to just bring road officials together, keep them connected, and provide that forum for communication between everyone in the state of Oregon.
Yeah, Emily, this is Dan. I believe for the cost that, and I'm sure Rick feels the same way, but for the cost involved and the value gained, with that network of road officials, public works directors, it's a very valuable organization.
Well, from my standpoint, it's not the information that Emily gives us as much as I use them for getting information or hunting stuff. It's really helpful to answer questions that's happening with us as well.
And that was my gist of my question, is make sure that our audience knows what it does for us.
And if I could add, this is Rob, I think at least for me, one of the most important things Oasis does, just from my perspective, is conferences, which allows me and others an opportunity to do presentations to update the road officials on what the legislature has done to them, or with them, or whatever you want to put it.
Yeah, right.
And have a forum, an open forum for discussion of all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Well, we just went, for example, the berms and the driveways, you guys seen the information that Rob did on that for us, and it's a good tool. We appreciate it, Rob.
I'm just down to the process. Do we need to do the ordinance first, or can we approve this in a governmental agreement and ratify the ordinance that way? I heard that earlier. Is that?
So this is Rob,
Right.
I'm suggesting you could do them concurrently, one right after the other on the same day.
Okay.
I think that follows along with the statute the most cleanly, and that's what our members have been doing so far.
Okay, so we need to, you have a Word document or whatever.
Yeah, Rob, was there any change to the ordinance after February 1st?
No, the ordinance remained exactly the same. You can find a Word document, you just cut and paste it into whatever form you guys use, and then throw it on whatever agenda after whatever process you have, and then you're good.
Okay, well, we can have it ready for the next meeting then.
Very good.
Sounds good. Thank you guys so much.
We good?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Bob.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, the only thing we have on the table is continuation of legal counsel in the executive,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
And we need Jay Collins here?
Yes. Oh, we don't need it, but it would be nice to.
Okay. Then we'll go back into executive with the same persons that came in plus Jay Collins.
Correct.